Alrighty, should be live. Last time I tried this, randomly had some problems, so hope things work out now. Let's see, is the title changed? Not quite, and I don't have access to that, so a bit unfortunate, but I'm sure someone will get on that eventually. Let's go put a notice out. Okay. Let me go ahead and put on Do Not Disturb. Just getting some baseball news, excuse me. Stevenson out after 3 pitches. Nice. I love my Angels. So, welcome in everyone. Sure we'll get some people slowly trickling in. I know it is quite a late night if you are an Eastern time folk. Otherwise, for us PST folk, right around the dinner time, CST, somewhere in between. But today, Wildcard playoffs for LOLMidwest. This is round 1 and game 2 of the playoffs. Femboys versus Hidden Leaf. 2 teams with something to prove. To put it lightly, as I'd like to say it. Kind of taking a look at the bracket here, coming down at the bottom of the bracket. Femboys slotting into the 6th seed. I believe they were a 2 seed for sake of playoff seeding, and Hidden Leaf a 3 seed. So that should mean Femboys getting side selection. They are going to be Team 2 here, opting for red side in this Game 1. And Hidden Leaf going to be on blue side for this Game 1 as well. Like I said, 2 teams with something to prove for sure. Hidden Leaf, for those who tuned in to the power rankings, and I know there was kind of a lot of talk in the chat going back and forth with some people feeling they were a little disrespected. Hidden Leaf are at the bottom of the list here. As someone who has not watched any Hidden Leaf games, I'm not going to venture to speak about it, but you got to be thinking they are trying to prove something here. That they belong and they can kind of hold their own with what has been labeled as the group of death for the season. Obviously, we'll see how things play out in playoffs, but you have Instinct, Femboys, and Coinflip all coming out of Group A and all in that top 6 of the power rankings. I'm a bit biased. I'm coming from Group A myself. I think definitely quite a strong group, but as has been mentioned constantly by Hairwiz, any team can get hot at any time. Live patch changes, always going to keep stuff interesting. So we're going to get into draft here. Like I said, not too sure about how Hidden Leaf typically like to play, but having played against Femboys, having watched some of their games, the way their drafts tend to go is relying on this kind of bruiser skirmishing topside, monk mentality in the mid lane, usually opting for some assassin type characters, which makes their games very fun to watch. You're not just going to have a control mage snooze fest, at least in my experience. And I am also a big fan of Mac, the AD carry of Femboys. If you want my, I guess, hot take of the game here to give people something to talk about, I actually think Mac was the best AD carry in Group A. Uh, Ninja Turks, my team, had the most struggle playing against him. I think generally the Femboys, his positioning in late game team fights mostly was far superior to the other AD carries we went up against. But dissecting the draft here a little bit more, a lot of support bans coming out. Hidden Leaf really targeting Ashes over on the side of Femboys. And now, as much as praise I give to Mac, Ashes was not someone who I was necessarily impressed with. Granted, in Group A, you are going up against some solid supports in Don Don and Geo Pro, so maybe not fair to compare him to the likes of them. But regardless, 3 support bans coming through: the Nautilus, the Blitzcrank, and the Senna. So we'll see how Femboys kind of adapt to that. One thing I'd encourage our viewers to keep an eye out for is a Sivir Yumi coming through. Like I said, Femboys tend to play assassin style topside, skirmishing heavy, and that Sivir Yumi kind of opens that up. Lucy LeBlanc locked in for Monk mentality. Assassin right off the board, locking that in confidently and blindly. Hidden Leaf picking Gwen as their first pick, and we got a Sona Seraphine. Oh boy, oh boy! Hidden Leaf throwing down the gauntlet. Oh man, nothing good to say about Sona Seraphine. All love to whatever you can do to win. It is playoffs. That definitely is one of those styles. I think we've all played games against that double enchanter bot lane. It just does not feel quite as interactive or as traditionally fun of a League of Legends game as you like. And with that Gwen first picked, a very strong AP bruiser, one of the strongest top laners in the meta right now, even jungle flex pick. Big fan of that Gwen pick. It does look like Ashes is going to lock in Rel, so kind of sticking with the engage side of things even after the Nautilus and the Blitzcrank are banned out. I think you kind of look over to Femboy's bans, the Braum, the Galio, the Malzahar. They are looking to get rid of these anti-dive characters so they themselves can play dive and try to blow up this now very squishy backline of Hidden Leaf. Round 2 of bans coming in. Olaf and Yone going to be taken away from Hidden Leaf. I like those bans. You kind of look at the Sona Seraphine. When you lock those 2 enchanters in, you are trying to draft around that with skirmishing bruiser type characters that benefit from being alive and hitting a long time. Olaf, Yone fit the bill to a T. So let's just get rid of them and force the little Game of Thrones squad on someone else. As we got to shout out these names. Hidden Leaf, big fan. Not sure who Tobi Ramu Senju is though. That one, yeah, Naruto. So just kind of one Naruto character in the mix of all these Game of Thrones folk. Don't ban Yasuo. Gonna lock in the Viego. Once again, leaning into that. Just to put it bluntly, hands diff topside, and that's what makes Femboys fun to watch. We'll see what's rounded out for Hidden Leaf here. We're probably looking towards both a mid laner and a jungler, and you're going to want likely some attack damage here, just because you now have 3 AP characters. So Xin Zhao, solid jungler right now, not quite as strong into the style that Femboys likes to play. Xin Zhao, a lot of his value comes from that Crescent Guard, that ultimate, where you take 99% reduced damage for anything outside that little circle that pops up when you ulti. So a little less value maybe in the late stages of the game, but in the early game can hold his own against Viego quite well. And it looks like a Tryndamere to round things out. So a little bit of spice coming through from Hidden Leaf. And another attack damage character as well. Be interesting to see where Hidden Leaf decides to slot all of these champions. Obviously that Sona Seraphine is going to be going into the bottom lane, but from there, you do have some flexibility between the Gwen, Xin Zhao, and Tryndamere. All very auto-based damages, which opens the way for an R5 Jax on the side of Femboys and Inferno. The Master Tier top laner. Gonna have a great avenue for the Grandmaster there. Whack some people up with that lamppost. Thank you for the title change. Appreciate that, Havoc. Oh, getting into draft. All right, kind of dissecting draft a little bit here. I think it's tough to iron in too much on what exactly is going everywhere for Hidden Leaf, but on paper, two very solid drafts with two very distinct identities. Hidden Leaf is going to be trying to make these fights last as long as they can, keep their Sona Seraphine alive to buff up the rest of their bruiser characters, get in their face, get some kills. Gonna want long fights. And on the side of Femboys, gonna want a lot more snappier, explosive fights. Looking to pick off one character, get a reset for that Viego, with the help of Monk Mentality's single target LeBlanc damage. Diving in with, what, 4.5, 5 dive champions. You have the Rel to start things off, followed by Jax, who should be very comfortable this game. Most of the damage coming from Xin Zhao Tryndamere can be nullified by the Jax, so we'll kind of see how that goes. Let me clean up things a little bit here. And laning-wise, looking at the bottom lane, this Rel Corki, Femboy should have kill pressure early on. One of the great parts about Rel into something like Sona Seraphine is the Q, that Shattering Lance, I believe it's called, or Shattering Strike. It does break shields. Not everyone knows that. And so when you go up against shield-heavy matchups like Sona, like Seraphine, if you time that right after landing a crash down, pop the shield, and then have Mac Valkyrieing on in with the Corki, that is a lot of damage in potential all-ins. So the Sona and the Seraphine are going to have to respect that. The way Sona Seraphine lanes typically work is you do fall behind early on, but at a certain point it just doesn't matter because you are so tanky with just utility. So we'll see how they're able to kind of pilot that and try to really buy time to get themselves into the later stages of the game where the Sona and the Seraphine can start to shine. Otherwise, the onus is mostly going to be on Ashes on the Rel. Was kind of doubting him a little bit. Love to be proven wrong. See if they can hold their own at the top of what are some powerhouse Group A supports and show why they belong in that sixth ranked power rank spot, or sorry, 4th ranked power rank spot. Putting very high for what is a 2 seed. So a lot to show here, and Hidden Leaf on the other side taking a game off of a, you could call it powerhouse in Femboys. Gonna do wonders for their resume too and get them off to a good start. And I think I kind of like what they're throwing down here at the start with something maybe a little different and maybe a little tailored too to shut down the way Femboys like to play, because unless Femboys get a massive lead, if Stark and Snow can position properly in these fights past 15-20 minutes, once 1-2 items start to come in for that double enchanter bottom lane, Hidden Leaf are going to be sitting very pretty. 3-minute spectator delay, help ensure a little bit of competitive integrity. We do have a look at where those bruisers are going to be going, so it will be Gwen in the top lane. Xin Zhao in the jungle and Tryndamere in the mid lane. Trend mid, something we haven't really seen officially in a while. Popped up in the meta maybe 3-4 years ago now. But it had a little more sustain. So we'll have to see how Monk Mentality is able to navigate, the ranged into melee matchup. Should be LeBlanc favored early on till at least level 6. And it's really tough to see Dario doing much more with that. Just because LeBlanc has so much mobility in her kit. With that W, the gap close may be pretty tough for the Tryndamere to actually get onto the LeBlanc. In the jungle, Xin Zhao into Viego, pretty stock standard jungle matchup where Xin Zhao should be favored at least early on, just incredibly strong skirmishing jungle. And then in the top lane, Gwen into Jax. Definitely the most, I'd say, skill matchup we kind of have set up for ourselves here. Martel versus Inferno. Should be an exciting watch, because once again, it is the skill matchup, and if any of these top laners get ahead, that is going to be huge for their team, as a lot of their team fights are going to be played through whoever is able to get the jump and kind of lead the charges in the front line there. There's so many missions. But my eyes are going to mostly be on the bottom lane early on to see if Ashes and Corki can really get ahead. Because if this Corki doesn't get ahead, Mac is going to be useless. You're just not going to be able to pilot into Tryndamere, Xin Zhao, Gwen as a squishy little AD carry. And with Seraphine and Sona healing up, beyond that, life's going to be miserable. So need to see a few early kills, or at least a massive CS advantage and gold lead coming through for the Femboys bottom lane. As we slowly get into game here. Oh, spectator problems. Nope. Interesting choice of runes here. Monk Mentality. This is what I mean. This mid laner can be so fun to watch. Slamming down the gauntlet. Gonna run the ignite. So really trying to push that advantage in lane into the melee matchup. We'll see if the gambit, it is always a gambit going ignite rather than TP, as you can't really play the map in what are two very strong. You're kind of setting yourself up if you're Femboys for a 1-3-1 comp with the Jax and LeBlanc, but with the ignite, maybe having to shift into a bit of more of a 4-1 in the late game. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. No TP on the Tryndamere though either. Does have the Ghost. Once again, that's to help gap close, because it is going to be a bit of a tough time in the mid lane with LeBlanc and the distortions, keeping her relatively safe. So we are into game here. Round 1 of playoffs. Femboys versus Hidden Leaf. Both teams a lot to prove here. Trying to shut up some haters, some doubters, and prove they belong here in what has been a crazy season of Midwest leading into the playoffs. Standard 5-point across the board to get us started. See Inferno maybe fishing for a bit of a deep ward here. Shouldn't be punished for it, although we will see some rotations over. Ward's going to get placed. Stark moving on up as well. Distortion forward to spot her out, and nothing much happens. Femboys already positioning pretty aggressively in this top side. And try to enable Inferno to maybe play aggressively despite his jungler starting in the top side and pathing down. I'd expect both junglers here to just full clear. Looks like the Dompen Yasuo on the Viego is going to be pathing down towards that favorable bottom lane, whereas Xin Zhao, not necessarily with any strongly favorable lanes. Path up, play towards the lane you have the most chance to do something. As few trades of abilities for Naharis and Monk Mentality. Mid lane going to stay spicy. Spinning Slash and Distortion, both going for the mobility abilities. And Mac already stepping forward. Crash down, landing on a Jon Snow. Positioning very aggressively here, and Ashe is going to pepper him down just a bit. As early control over the bottom lane here for the Femboys. And looking towards the top side too, don't want to let this go unnoticed. Viego actually opted for the cross map. So went red buff into buff. Classic buff into buff invade. You saw Inferno place the ward early on, so you know you're safe to do that. And this is just great early game planning from the top side of Femboys here. All these wards coming from top jungle mid, and Senju is going to be wandering over to his blue buff and be a bit lost, as not going to quite be able to make the whole full clear happen. And now Viego in a great spot, going to start to build up a bit of a camp lead, as Senju is probably going to have to look to force a gank somewhere, as there's just no camps for him to farm. Naharis actually getting the shove in the mid lane. I guess the Tryndamere sustain is enough to kind of fight through what is some lackluster damage of an early game LeBlanc. And things holding steady in the bottom lane for Jon Snow and Arya Stark. The Winterfell squad doing quite alright for themselves so far, as an invade comes through from Naharis and Senju. Viego gonna spot it out. Trades in the top side, and Ashe is roaming over to try to help his team. Monk Mentality getting jumped on, a little chunk down, but now Senju is caught by Ashe's Rail, and that's going to be first blood plus a reset going over to the Viego, who dashes in for more. Chaos breaking out early on into the river here. Dario flashing forward, gets one, but trades his life for it, and now Mac going on to Jon Snow. Monk Mentality flashes for the chain, and now Mac is just feasting it all up. Arya Stark trying to clean up what damage she can, but no mana means that will be the end of it, and a 3 for 2 at the end of it all, in favor of the Femboys, who get that first collapse in. Senju and Naharis, like I said, Senju was going to have to force something without any camps up. Calls over his mid laner, who has the push, and they're able to push out the Viego a bit. But Ashe is on the playmaking rel. Recognizes what's going on first, and Inferno going in with a counter-strike kill. Solo kill in the top lane in that volatile top lane matchup is going to be great. More great news for Femboys. We are at zeros, Brandino. You're tuning in for game one. Femboys the higher seed here, so did select red side, and it is working out for them well. They came in with a great game plan, getting this Viego ahead, and then punishing really the only play the Xin Zhao and Tryndamere could make with the rotation into the blue side jungle. But the Viego still invading, and with no flash is going to be caught out by Senju now. The whole squad coming over to help secure this kill. Viego can do nothing but run away. Can't quite thread the needle with the towers there. And a kill going over to the Tryndamere. Good point. It is AP Jackson Inferno. Got 3 points in E. So a little bit of spice coming through in the top side, and I'm a fan of it. You already have some good AD damage with the Viego, with the Corki. And we see now, after that first kind of bot lane play, Stark and Snow maybe struggling a bit more in this lane, as Mac and Ashes start to build up their wallets here. Inferno going to be able to do some zoning work in the top side as well. So zooming out into the broader picture here, most of your lead for Hidden Leaf is going to be on Dario Naharis. We'll see what the Tryndamere can kind of do in these team fights. It's a good spot to have gold, as you don't want Monk Mentality getting ahead on this LeBlanc. And a fed Tryndamere diving into these kind of melee brawlish type champions, it's exactly where you want to be as a Tryndamere. But with this AP Jax having gold, this Corki having gold, that will be enough to secure an easy first dragon just under 7 minutes into the game here. As that will be smited away. Senju kind of looking for a play, but only level 4 in this Xin Zhao. As Martel going to be ghosting forward. Inferno caught out a little bit as Needlework comes through. Force flash out. Senju giving chase. Over and Martel jumping forward. Ward hop away, but a flash in from Senju, followed by a slow on the W, is not quite going to be enough, as Inferno limping away with just under 200 health. A great initial all-in from Martel there. Pops the Ghost, pops the Needlework. Chunks Inferno down low, but man, Senju only level 4 on the Xin Zhao. Now level 5, getting a little bit back. Just doesn't have any damage at that stage in the game into the AP Jax. Jax into Xin Zhao is sitting very pretty. Saw an example of that there. Throws up the Counter-Strike, and Toby Ramu just had to back up. That's all he could do. As we do see that Monk Mentality LeBlanc on display. While the Tryndamere is ahead, the LeBlanc is like by no means behind. So you're really on the edge of your seat here, waiting for Monk Mentality to kind of have like a pop-off moment. And we'll see if there is a misstep or if Hidden Leaf can continue to kind of navigate a stable game state to buy time for this double enchanter bot lane to scale up. As we see both tier items in. Are going to seed the grubs. Good roam by Ashes. Kind of just textbook cross-map play. Throw your support up there when you have the winning bot lane. Leave 80 carry to farm alone in the bottom lane. It is into double enchanter, so less threat of a dive. But when this jungler shows up, that changes things. And a great cover by Monk Mentality. Who distortions out. Arya Stark falling dangerously low. Mac with a great flash out of the Encore. Peppering damage into him all the time. And with Monk Mentality jumping forward as well, that will be a surprising kill, as Femboys picking up stuff all over the map, getting the 3 grubs, and Mac with a little bit of fancy feet on that Corgi, able to pick up a kill onto Stark. Said, I got a lot of respect for Mac in that 80 carry role. Generally has a great idea of positioning and when to kind of push things. You see a great flash over the Seraphine ulti there, all while peppering in damage. But as I say that, Senju showing face in the bottom side is going to jump forward onto Mac. Crescent Guard cancels the crash down and a shutdown back over to Arya Stark. Maybe a bit of a caster curse, but if you're Mac, you have to get that wave in. And Senju recognizing that, getting something a little back for himself on the Xin Zhao after what has been a kind of rough early game due to the superior team play of Femboys. And just about 10 minutes in, a few kills apiece, we are almost dead even in gold. Exactly what you want out of game 1 of this playoffs. And we'll kind of see how things change in the mid game here, as this is kind of a look at what's happening in this mid lane matchup. Monk Mentality, aggressive distortions forward. Daria Naharis able to just kind of tank it up, building towards some lifesteal, wave clearing, keeping pace in farm. And Inferno in this top side, the AP Jax going for Proto Belt. 20 CS lead up over the Gwen. Sitting comfortably in that top side. That is where Femboys will want to play through for the next little bit. Just keep letting your side lane take over, as this Seraphine and Sona are slowly getting to the annoying parts of the double enchanter, where they just press their little W shield heal abilities and you can't do much. Diego spotted out on the top side. Martel with some good eyes there. As Monk Mentality! Pop goes the Weasel! Oh my good, blink and you'll miss it! Absolutely smokes Naharis there from 900 health. Has the ulti up. I don't blame him for not using it. Just a great layering of abilities there. Sigil, Orb, Distortion, and Electrocute. Gonna be enough with that Luden's Companion providing the extra burst. Naharis not even popping the Undying Rage in what was Wow. A exquisite display of that assassin gameplay coming through from Monk Mentality. Who let this guy get LeBlanc? Inferno looking for a dive in the top lane. Misses the flash stun, and now Martel trading back with the needlework. So ultimately a trade of ults and a trade of Ghost and Flash on each side. But all that happening under tower, just showing Inferno's comfort in this isolated 1v1. It's been pretty much a 1 versus 1 the entire time. Jungler's not having too much of an effect on the lane, as Don't Ban Yasuo is going to get chain CC'd up, but no damage on the side of Stark and Snow. Ashe is flashing forward, is going to fall just short. And Snow and Stark able to walk that one off, just having to use a couple of their ultis, looking for a pick onto Don't Ban Yasuo's Viego. Senju sneaking in here, and Mac jumping forward way too aggressively as Senju going to flash forward to punish that. And now Hidden Leaf turning their eyes up towards the river. Incredibly aggressive even without the Xin Zhao there on the Corki. Rest of his team on the Drake, and now we'll see if Monk Mentality is going to be able to perform some heroics. Jumps in there with the Rel. 3-man stun into a reset for the Viego. A kill on the backside onto Sona. Xin Zhao picking up what he can, but with these Viego resets and with LeBlanc free hitting this entire time, Dario Naharis' Tryndamere ulti is not going to be enough as Femboys chase over the wall, pick up the dragon, and pick up 4 clean kills. 12.5 minutes into this game. Just a great layering of chain CC there. Blowing up what are, at this stage of the game, a very squishy set of Hidden Leaf members. So Stark and Snow, no ulti, having used it earlier on the Viego and really only chunking them down to half. And without those ultis to kind of disengage the dive of Monk Mentality, the crash down of Ashes, just lambs to the slaughter. At this point in the game, you don't really have enough healing coming through from that double enchanter. And now, if you're the side of Femboys, Monk Mentality 4-1 on that signature LeBlanc pick. Picking up a triple kill there, I believe. And Inferno still sitting very comfortably in this top lane. A level up onto the Gwen. Probably able to 1v2 comfortably in this bottom lane here. Versus the top side where Mac is able to kind of continue to pepper down that tower. Expect this gold lead to balloon over the next 5-10 minutes here. Unless Hidden Leaf can manage to slow the pace down a bit. Just kind of jumping around the map here. Both junglers going to continue to farm up. You know, Viego is kind of the one character who's maybe not super ahead for the top side of Femboys, but if he ever gets a reset, you're going to be quite comfortable. Inferno going to be just out of range, even with the Proto Belt for the Leap Strike Counter-Strike combo. Monk Mentality, great roam, losing one whole minion for what could have been a great kill angle to look for. As we still have action in the bottom lane here. Don't Ban Yasuo going for a ward, but is going to recognize outnumbered here. Back on up, show respect to the bot jungle of Hidden Leaf. And it does look like Femboys are going to continue this kind of lane swap they have going on. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of that. You were comfortably winning the 1 versus 1 as Inferno's Jax, getting pretty much 4 solo plates. And swapping out of that to kind of leave the Jax alone just to free farm, letting this Sona Seraphine free farm. I feel like no one's losing enough on the map to justify the swap. That being said, though, in this long play, you know, 2-3 minutes later, by continuing the swap, they do set themselves up in a position to play for this Herald. Falling down to 5k already. Senju poking his head in, maybe looking for a little bit of a steal here. As Inferno going in the bottom lane too. 2-man stun. Does back up as we see Rift Herald go over to Viego in the top side. And now Femboys laying siege to this very low health top tower. So good rotation when all is said and done. Getting this Corki a little bit more back in the game. A little bit more caught up. Like I said, keep your eye on this gold graph over the next few minutes here, as it's already up to about 3K. Thanks to just constant pressure by Femboys, as Naharis looking for a bit of an angle onto Monk Mentality, who did distortion forward. And with a distortion out, is going to be able to get out of that. So you see kind of the thinking behind the Tryndamere pick here. You are able to relatively sustain through all the damage Monk Mentality puts out. And with the spinning slash forward, able to kind of have a little bit of pressure on the Monk Mentality. And come these kind of later game team fights, he's able to pop the Undying Rage and kind of stay in the thick of things and hit. Should be in a good spot for team fights. Ward lines getting pushed as both teams settling down into the 1-3-1 that they sort of drafted for. Dragon up in 43. Should be the next play here. Would be soul point for Femboys. As Naharis continuing to clear the wave here. Monk Mentality, getting an aggressive trade, but Naharis able to really just heal it up. Now has the Merc Tread, so that's going to take away a lot of the kind of one-shot action we got a glimpse of earlier. Ashes warding deep, respecting Senju and Snow. Hold that control ward line just fine. Dragon up in 5 seconds now. Reset through for Viego. 2 items on the Seraphine. 2 items on this AP Jax. This next fight is absolutely pivotal. Pivotal. As Monk Mentality trading a bit aggressively in the bot side. Undying Rage is popped from Naharis, and Senju in the area trying to get a knock up here. Monk Mentality jumps back in, and the Ignite tick is going to be enough to kill down Naharis. Xin Zhao is going to be able to trade that back. Mac jumping forward aggressively, and a flash Magnustorm crash down onto 2 from Ashes is not quite going to be enough damage as Mac falls dangerously low here. Senju fighting back with the Viego on the bottom side of the map is, when all is said and done, just a 1-for-1 and a lot of trade of ultis across the board here. And Dragon still up for anyone's taking. Senju 2 levels down on the Xin Zhao, not going to be able to hold his own into the Viego, but a TP coming through from Stark. Help push out that bottom wave and try to make a play for this Drake. Looks like will be Femboy's call as Monk Mentality down for another kind of 5 seconds here. Is right now the scariest member of Femboys. Inferno haven't really gotten into the team fights yet. As we are still on a knife's edge here, this Dragon is still up. And Hidden Leaf needs something to stall this game out. Jon Snow maybe a bit caught out here as double distortion forward from Monk Mentality forces the flash out. As the bastard limps away with remnants of a health bar, and that chunk will be enough for Femboys to turn their eyes towards Drag. Needlework forward forces the ward jump out from Inferno. Playing it safe. Knows the team is getting the Dragon. Soul point on the bottom side of the map. No need to force anything. Clean gameplay from the Femboys. As you kind of get a glimpse of that, how scary that LeBlanc is. One misstep at this stage of the game. I mean, quick peek at that from the directed camera in the bottom lane too. Arya Stark losing 3/4 of her HP there into Monk Mentality's LeBlanc. 2 items now, Deathcap and Ludens. We'll see if this game continues to snowball for Femboys. They do have to. You know, you look at, you still have Double Enchanter on the other side of things. Not a comp you want to be playing into the later the game goes. Senju looking for a play on this level 14 AP Jax on the top side, who is really diving in aggressively. Crescent Strike over, gets the knockup, and Ghost pop from Martel, trying to trade stuff back, but Inferno getting Oberyn Martel dangerously low, who is still charging forward. One last sniff is going to get the shutdown. Massive kill going over to that Gwen. Clawing some gold back in her favor, and now Viego in the area, but this is currently a 1 versus 2. Looking for the reset, Martel going to drop down. Arya Stark showing up in the area, but Gwen goes immune, and Don't Ban Yasuo is hunting for more. Forces the flash out from Senju, and now Mac Valkyrieing forward. Don't Ban Yasuo getting the Heartbreaker stun is not quite going to be enough. Arya Stark popping the Archangel Staff Shield to barely stay alive. And once again, Hidden Leaf limps on out of the fight. 1 for 1 in the extended play. Thanks to the Viego kind of coming in and saving the day. But a nice shutdown going over to Oberyn Martell there to help get this Gwen kind of back in the thick of things. Has not been able to hold her own against this AP Jax of Inferno. And in this 1-3-1 comp, if you're losing both sides of the one, game can be pretty tough to navigate. We got Soul up for Femboys. Just over 2.5 minutes here. 4K gold lead. Taking a look at where that is. A lot of it on the Jax, a lot of it in the mid lane. Bottom lane still ahead. Arya Stark over Mac. But what much can the Seraphine do into this bruiser topside of Femboys? Mentioned it in draft. This is how they like to play. Play these hand-stiff champions in the top lane, and when it works like a charm. You have great players in Inferno, Monk Mentality, and Don't Ban Yasuo who can snowball the game really out of proportion here. Otacon falling dangerously low here. Naharis and Senju looking for a contest. Down to 3K. Stun goes through onto Naharis. Monk Mentality jumping forward. 2K on the Otacon. It's going to be bursted down. Viego secures a 3-man Magisword crash down in the backside. Ulti's traded back and forth. 2-man stun in the backside from Ashes as Viego is jumping forward, getting some resets, and that will be enough. A double kill going over for Don't Ban Yasuo behind some great engages from Ashes and great damage follow-up from Monk Mentality. The TP in from Inferno to cut off Martell as Don't Ban Yasuo is going to pick up another one. Ace and Otacon coming through for the Femboys. 23 minutes into this game here as they are starting to run away with things. Turning their eyes towards the inhib tower, towards the inhib in what was an absolutely explosive fight going in their favor. Definitely want to take a look at that one again because we probably have a little bit of downtime on the action here. So 2K on the Otacon. Ashes flashing in, getting an engage. Good Seraphine ulti on the backside to kind of stall things, but Monk Mentality hitting for free this entire time. Dario Naharis dies after the Undying Rage pops out. And Viego able to pick up these resets here, follow up on what Monk Mentality set up for some easy damage. By the time Oberyn Martell gets here, it's too late, and Inferno is able to run him down. Now 2 levels up on that Jax for that final kill, as we'll get ourselves back to live here. Dragon Soul spawning for Femboys. Almost 10K gold lead down. Hidden Leaf not really in a spot to contest as Arya Stark falling dangerously low. Monk Mentality with the assassination is getting CC'd up, but no damage on the side of Hidden Leaf as Monk Mentality doing a little bit of fancy footwork, stays alive. Viego soloing the Drake this entire time, and one final chase down is going to be enough for another set of 4 kills for the side of Femboys. As it looks like they'll be marching down onto the base here. 10 seconds on the bottom lane of Hidden Leaf. And Femboys want this game 1 to end early on here. No messing around. Going to be full hitting. Femboys taking a dominant game 1 over Hidden Leaf. Well executed from the side of Femboys. Definitely the favorite on paper going into this game and showing why. You know, things really from start to end in control. Early game plan to get that Viego ahead with some smart early warding and a bold early game invade, followed by smart collapses and great punishes from the explosive top side of Femboys. Monk Mentality leading the charge. Almost 30k damage in a 25-minute game on the LeBlanc. I think the Tryndamere as the answer. It did look okay early on, but when you have such a heavy kind of damaged topside, this LeBlanc able to really stay in things, and Monk Mentality showing why you don't give LeBlanc over to Femboys. Oh, let's get in the draft here. All right, let's jumping right into it. Not giving us any break. A little bit of talk on the past draft. Yeah, I like having, when you know this LeBlanc is comfort, and we saw it picked on R1, go for something, have a game plan. The Tryndamere was piloted, honestly, quite well. Things were pretty even up until, like, maybe 15 minutes. Sure, there was one solo kill, but I don't think that really let things get out of control. Things really fell apart once those organized skirmishes came through, and I think the bottom lane made the difference from that point in terms of just pure value. Ashes with some great engages on the rel, doing a bit more than the double enchanter bottom lane in the early game, and letting Monk Mentality feast, as we know they do when they get LeBlanc. So jumping into game 2 draft, gonna see similar bans for the side of Femboys. Galio ban and Braum ban, kind of hinting towards an engage style comp again. If it worked, if it broke, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Hidden Leaf switching things up a bit with a Xerath and Aurora ban, so targeting Monk Mentality in that mid lane, maybe going in with a bit of a different plan this go around. As we'll still see a Senna ban come through. So Nautilus open for Ashes. Blitzcrank open for Ashes. We'll see what direction Femboys decide to go in. I like the Nautilus pick here. We saw Engage Champion piloted nicely by Ashes. Or why not set Monk Mentality up for another Smurf performance? Lock the Akali, lock an Assassin, and see what your mid laner can do to diff and just take over. And is technically a flex pick too. Inferno can be taking that up in the top lane if matchups kind of call for it. Syndra gonna be the counter pick there, the answer. Sorry, Swain, last second switch up into the Akali. So another kind of drain tanky character who wants to play these longer fights. Should have a bit more survivability into the Akali, just thanks to a higher health bar. Assuming that goes mid. Once again, can go bottom lane, especially as we saw Stark and Snow play a bit more untraditional bot lane with that double enchanter Sona Seraphine. Sivir locked in though, so we are going to have something a little more normal. Just a safe 80 carry to keep things going. I think, I like it better than the Sona Seraphine. If you're kind of opting for something that maybe can hold the line more gracefully, then Sivir's a great answer for that. Also takes away the pick from the Sivir Yuumi of Femboys that we've seen a lot throughout the season. We're going to have to opt into a Smolder Yuumi. So we'll see what the answer is here for Hidden Leaf. Do you kind of match it with scaling? I'd expect him to take support on 3 here, seeing the enemy bot lane. Do you match it with scaling? Do you go for something with a bit more kill pressure, even though Sivir isn't necessarily that aggressive of a laner? As time ticking down, it's going to be a Maokai lock-in. Another flex, but tends to be jungle nowadays. So just a safe tank jungler as Hidden Leaf are setting themselves up for a standard and tried and true front to back team comp early on in the drafting phase here. They did select red side, so we'll see who they end up saving that R5 counter pick for, as you expect it to kind of be in the top lane. That's where it typically goes, and just based on characters that have been picked so far, we'll see if Martel, who, you know, definitely struggled against the Jacks, but had their moments, was able to really set up Inferno on quite low health bar with the needlework, and what can be a tough matchup to pilot. So definitely want to see Martel on a more comfortable matchup in the top lane. We'll see how that potentially changes things. If we do see top lane bans come through, so that is telling me Hidden Leaf do want to play through Martel a little bit more this game. Getting rid of Camille and Garen. No Demacia tonight. As on the other side, a Jarvan ban coming through. So that Maokai flex still kind of open, and a note of concern for the Femboys, and a Shen ban. Brandino not subbing in for Hidden Leaf as far as I know. So that one just paying respect over to that pick. And it looks like Hidden Leaf are going to opt for that aggressive side of the bottom lane here with the Nautilus. I'm a fan. I always like kill lanes in the bottom lane. You know, I think from the few games I've casted, a lot of teams do like to go for more aggressive top sides and safer bottom lanes, which is the standard way League of Legends is played. You know, let your marksman farm up safe. But if you can get this bot lane super ahead, it makes the game a lot easier. And Nautilus into Yuumi has the potential to do that, even with a more traditionally passive AD carry in the Sivir. As Sylas locked in on B4 for Femboys. Now things get interesting, as once again we have some bruiser flexing potentially going on. That Akali could be mid or top alongside Sylas. Trundle should be in the jungle. Great pick into Nautilus and Maokai. Even the Swain. Just get rid of some of those resistances and let your Akali and Sylas feast. Yeah, a little moist in the chat. I don't know what that yeah is for, but I dig it. And we'll see what the answer is here for presumably Oberyn Martel. Pantheon picked on 5, so that's going to be comfortable into the Akali and the Sylas, whichever one ends up going into. Just high base damages. Gonna let that be navigated well. Assuming the Pantheon goes solo lane, but we are going to have to get into draft to really see where everything goes. The one thing we are sure about is the bottom lanes of each side. Smolder and Yuumi into Sivir, Nautilus. Loving what Hidden Leaf are looking for now, from double Enchanter to the Nautilus lane. I'm loving it, because you know, take the game into your hands, Jon Snow. Arya Stark, you know. Let yourself do more work here. That Nautilus should be able to win into Yuumi if they can navigate and find those good hooks. So we will ready up and get into the same draft as always. Yeah, it's kind of tough to look at it. It's just going to be a slugfest, really, when you look at these two drafts. You have Swain, who wants to sit in the thick of things. Maokai and Pantheon, who have to sit in the thick of things. It is currently 1-0 in favor of Femboys. So again, first round of playoffs here, best of 3. Game 1 was not close. And just props to Femboys there. Great game plan from the start. They set up a solid set of early wards to enable a buff-to-buff invade for Don't Ban Yasuo, getting things off to an early lead. And once skirmishes kind of rolled around, there was a slight lead in favor of Femboys, and they were pretty much first to the fight every time, with great engages from Ashes, leading to Monk Mentality, who ended up getting LeBlanc. And if anyone knows anything about Monk Mentality, that is not a champion you want to give over to the Femboys mid laner. And from there, it was kind of just wraps. 28k damage in 25 minutes for the LeBlanc there, who just steamrolled fights and set the team up for success. We'll see if we get an idea of positions here. I'm not even going to look yet because things may swap around more. But back to more of a high-level look at the draft. It should just be a slugfest, you know? Maokai and Pantheon have to go in with those point-and-click WCC abilities. Swain wants to be in these fights. Akali and Sylas are going to be in these fights. Going to have to get in the thick of things. And the only squishy target they really have to target is the Sivir, who tends to play safe with a spell shield. We'll see how the Hidden Leaf's AD carry is able to navigate that in what is traditionally a very potent dive of Femboy's topside. On the flip side, Smolder and Yuumi just going to be doing whatever they can to stay alive too through a lot of point-and-click CC. But I think they're more well-equipped to do so than their opposing Sivir, as there's just not as much damage threat onto you if you're Mac, if you're Ashes, as the Sivir can't really follow up. And from there, as long as the Pantheon and Swain don't get too far ahead, you should be able to kite things out just all right. It's going to be interesting how things turn out. So, draft finished up in client. It looks like Trundle top, Sylas jungle, and Akali mid. Okay, so the Akali is going to be in the mid lane. I'm not sure if people are in order over on Hidden Leaf's side, as that is very untraditional. It is a custom game, so you're not locked into support items. As, you know, this what could be a Swain Nautilus bot. I'm going to assume it's Sivir Nautilus bot, Swain mid, Pantheon top. Trundle into the Pantheon is going to be interesting. The Pantheon should be able to win that very early on, but once Trundle ticks over to 6, is going to be favored in that 1 versus 1, as stealing those base stat damages and armor should be enough to tip the favor for the auto attack heavy Trundle. The Sylas jungle is something I haven't seen in a while, and said the same thing about Tryndamere mid last game, so we're having a bit of fun drafts here on this Friday evening. As Akali mid lane into what I assume is the Swain. Monk Mentality should be able to navigate that just fine. Pretty comfortable on the Akali. Why wouldn't you have big icons, man? Never misclick. League's right there. I can have my mouse anywhere I want and it'll still get there. I can be a bit inebriated and I'll still find my way to the client. Eyes are once again gonna be on bottom lane as a bit of bias, just because I do want to see Nautilus run over a Yuumi. Always more entertaining, and I think if this Sivir can get ahead, then Hidden Leaf have a very clear path to victory. Otherwise, things are going to come down to some more mid-game river skirmishes, and Femboys had Hidden Leaf's number in game 1 with those types of fights. And, you know, with just how dominant it was, it's tough to see that really changing in game 2. Would love to be wrong. Who wouldn't want a best of 3 in the playoffs here? Go the whole way. But time will tell. Back in my day, icons were the size of the whole monitor. Back in my day, we had a monitor for every icon. Gramps can't be missing. Gramps gotta, like, actually see what he's clicking on, you know? So yeah, just a little bit out of order. Swain is going to be in the mid lane. Arya Stark going to take that Sivir in the bottom lane. As we are once again in the game. Game 2 of round 1 of the LOLMidwest Wildcard playoffs. As Femboys currently have a 1-0 lead over Hidden Leaf. And things are shaping up to be another spicy game from the get-go, as Jon Snow leading the charge for an early level 1 invade here on the Nautilus. They are going to be spotted out by the Sylas, I believe. No pings coming down, though. As I'm on the edge of my seat here. See if something actually breaks out. As Maokai showing face there. Gonna check the bush. Doesn't actually get in the bush. And oh, Sylas able to spout that one out and clear the ward too. Man, a little bit of sneaky gameplay coming through from FB early on. And a lot of explosive lanes too. Everywhere across the map. If this Akali, if this Trundle get ahead, I can see FB just kind of running away with the rest of the game here. Monk Mentality once again opting for an Ignite and getting some early chunk onto Dario Naharis. We'll keep an eye on how that one goes. As we see Jon Snow already playing aggressively here. Not gonna look for the hook yet though. Does force the ward out. Hook goes just left. As we'll see if this Smolder Yuumi pick can get punished in lane at all. Picked as an answer into the Sivir. So you are going to be comfortable scaling up. That's kind of the idea there. You just match the scaling. Monk Mentality taking over to 2, using the Shroud to continue to try to harass Dario Naharis. As Arya Stark, a perfect 12 CS so far. Gonna try to force Mac off of some free farm. Without not to too much avail. Junglers starting on opposite side. This time, no funky countering shenanigans. Sylas full of clearing down. Sylas jungle not the healthiest first clear, but should be able to make it through ever since jungle pet changes a little while back. You can kind of navigate anything in the jungle and be at least alright. Just not quite as strong as meta. As a hook lands in the bottom side. Mac getting chunked a bit low by the ricochets and heal forced out from Ashes by the Winterfell bottom lane. As a flash stun from Martel. Drops the Ignite and gets an early kill. stabbing Inferno with authority. That R5 Pantheon counterpick doing work. Monk mentality flashes in himself and forces a flash out from Naharis on the Swain. As already, game 2 delivering with some spice. It's exactly what you want to see out of Martel. Locking the Pantheon, something with a bit more agency early on. And Monk mentality going in, drops the Ignite. Shuriken flip onto Naharis, who's fallen dangerously low. Hook misses on the bottom side. Mac forced to flap his way out, but is not going to be able to do so. Exhaust drops down. Spell Shield drops down. Double flash forward from Snow and Stark in the bottom lane. Brings over a kill to the Nautilus. In the mid lane, Dario Naharis barely getting out too. As Hidden Leaf jumping out to a great start of this game 1. Don't ban Yasuo should be able to pick up a free kill on the summoner-less Sivir here, though. See if they donate it. Nope. Take that for himself. Kind of talks about how Femboys do like to play, you know. Let their skirmish topside get the resources, start to carry. Mac and Ashes can farm it up and contribute in team fights later on. Monk mentality trading a bit aggressively here. Oberyn Martel in a great spot in the top lane. As eyes are still going to be on this bottom lane now, especially with no summoners on this Smolder Yuumi, as stun out for Oberyn Martel, trying to kite away Inferno, who is just whacking this Pantheon down. One more chomp for good measure. Lethal Tempo gets fully stacked up. And Martel falls down to around 100 health there. Trundle showing off his early skirmishing, and this is kind of what I was talking about. It happened a little earlier than expected, but once this Trundle hits level 6, we're going to see a lot more of that, as going to be able to pop that Subjugate ulti and just stat check the Pantheon, run him down, stack up the Lethal Tempo, take some club swings, take some bites, and Pantheon not going to be able to do too much there. Swain taking over to level 6 should ensure some more survivability against Monk mentality. And Naharis going to spot out the Swain here on the invade, but with the Maokai on the bottom side, that won't mean anything. And Senju looking for a dive here, but Snow and Stark need to get this wave in first. Looks like the call is going to be to go for Krugs. Maybe dive on the cannon wave. Some textbook bot lane League of Legends. You do have a Maokai, so you are looking to kind of set up for a dive. Ward drops down though, so that will be enough for Mac and Ashes to pay some respect over. Unfortunately, have to drop a good portion of this wave. As Snow doing some zoning duties there on the bottom side. But once the Silas comes over, that's going to be enough for Mac and Ashes to walk back up and reclaim some of the farm. But a well-orchestrated play from the bot side of Hidden Leaf. As Hook goes through onto Mac, who gets caught by the Boomerang Blade. Ignite drops down, and that will be enough. Mac mispositioning there as Jon Snow catches him out with the hook. And as I was saying, this bottom lane of Hidden Leaf, much different look than Double Enchanter. I mean, hey, maybe don't lock in Sona Seraphine. Maybe this is your calling, you know? Throw down the gauntlet. Take the Nautilus. As Monk mentality jumping into the mid lane, and with Don't Ban Yasuo here, perfect execution will be enough for Monk mentality to start the snowball. As the Group A second team mid laner behind Good Boy, getting off to another comfortable start here, just past the early stages of this game. So back to the Hidden Leaf bot lane, as I keep trying to get words out and action keeps breaking out. Well-orchestrated play, getting the push in the bot lane, transitioning over to drag with Senju, who then stays around, hovers, takes the Krugs while Stark and Snow crash the bottom lane to force Mac and Ashes away, and that is why this Sivir has an early CS lead over the Smolder. And more importantly, a 600 gold lead. Exactly what we said needed to happen. Some sort of lead when you lock in this Nautilus. And with the lead, rotating the knot over to the top side, but Arya Stark a bit caught up as Mac flaps on forward. Arya Stark forced to spell shield the Smolder Q. It is barely going to be enough. And on the top side, Femboys going to be outnumbered here by Hidden Leaf, but Don't Ban Yasuo is jumping in boldly onto the Pantheon. A misclick maybe on the ulti from the Sylas, and Oberyn Martell flashes out to help secure the double kill for Dario, as Sylas took the Pantheon ulti and then just kind of stood still and jumped in the air. Maybe trying to mash buttons, get abilities out as fast as you can, but with Jon Snow's rotation, that was really never going to work out for them. Monk mentality sure can flip on in. Never move misses, and Dario Nahara is falling dangerously low. Means Jon Snow is not going to be able to accomplish much as he peeks his face into the mid lane. And Grub's going to go over to Senju on the Maokai. Not going to be too valuable for the side of Hidden Leaf this game, who are probably looking to play this traditional 5v5 comp, but taking that away from the Femboys 1-3-1 of Trundle, Akali, Sylas is definitely going to be helpful. As Stark and Snow going to continue to push out this bottom lane, try to get a few more resources back for themselves. But with the TP that Mac has to get back there, won't be too much of a problem. Don't Ban Yasuo, canceling the backs. Gonna give a nice tempo advantage here to Mac, who's able to pick up that farm. And with Drake spawning in less than a minute, I'd expect that to be where our next fight breaks out. Monk mentality still doing great work in the mid lane despite the double kill that Dario Naharis got. It's low CLT. 61. Not dangerously low, but hasn't really been able to stack that up on the Sivir too much. And I think at this current pace, you're waiting till at least 25 minutes if things start accelerating. As Jon Snow and Senju making their way onto the mid lane. Point and click CC down onto the Akali, who gets chained up. Don't Ban Yasuo jumping in, Absconda ducked onto the Swain ulti. But in this 3 versus 2, it's not going to be enough for the Femboys. As I say, that sure can flip. Perfect execution onto the backline, makes it a 1-for-1. Monk mentality jumping in with some heroics there. Taking down Senju. Subjugate popped in the top side as Inferno begins to chase down Oberyn Martell. One more chomp to do it, and a solo kill on the top side. Dario trying to get up there to pick up the remains. But in this counterpick Pantheon matchup, Inferno just going to give the kill over. So a quote-unquote solo kill back. But Trundle going to be very happy with how this lane state is now going. Putting on display exactly what I was talking about. Able to just pop that ulti and run down the Pantheon. It's that easy. And now looking in the bottom lane, Senju showing face. Sivir ulti popped, but Mac is going to flap on out of there. Senju getting in the area, but Sylas is around too. Chain Lash falls just short as Maokai forced to flash and retreat out of the fight there. But is sticking around for a little more as the Oberyn Martell comes in with the Pantheon ulti. Grand Starfall to secure the kill onto the Sylas. That is how you use it, Don't Ban Yasuo. And now eyes potentially turning to the Drake, but health bars a little bit too low. Means not quite yet for Hidden Leaf, as 12 minutes in, we got another tight game, at least at the start here. We'll see if Hidden Leaf can kind of keep this momentum going. We're seeing some of the skirmishing potential already coming out from Femboys, so you really want to get these organized team fights around objectives if you're Hidden Leaf. As Oberyn Martell chunking out Inferno a bit with a few spears. And Jon Snow continuing to play the map here, leaving Arya Stark alone and letting this Smolder farm up 87 stacks, so getting a little better. And second Drake, more importantly, going over to the side of Hidden Leaf. Yeah, great point. It is going to be AP Maokai at first. I think the style of comp you're playing, you do want something a little more tanky to buy space for your Sivir, as that's going to be the majority of your damage. Building AP on Maokai isn't going to provide too much there. It will help with zone control, and I see the one caveat, maybe the thinking there for Senju, is you press tab, you look in the top lane, flash hook, gonna miss just a wee bit outside, as is the chain lash, but the shuriken flip is not, and Monk Mentality secures another kill in the mid lane, as this hook connects from Jon Snow. Mac not quite able to flash out, and Arya Stark getting one back in the bottom lane. So, don't ban Yasuo. Good gank in the mid lane, getting Monk Mentality further accelerated with another kill on this Akali. But in the bottom side, we do see that Nautilus paying dividends, getting another kill for the Sivir. Able to just press R on that Smolder and lock him down for Stark to provide enough damage. Yeah, I do think it's unending. Would be a little better. I'm just saying the only justification you can see is if you're scared Trundle is going to ulti you every single team fight. And maybe you want to provide a little more zone control as they do start to play for these Drakes. But we'll keep an eye on that build, see how things shape out, as this Maokai is a little bit behind in the game. Yeah, a little bit is a bit of an understatement. 1.5k gold down in what is an even gold game. So that is offset by the Sivir's lead. And if you want to be behind, you want to be behind on a Maokai. This Drake spawning in just under 3 minutes here. It's going to be what Hidden Leaf are hoping to wait around for. And hoping they're not wiped by Monk Mentality. Said at the start of this game, if this Sivir is able, eyes are going to be on the Sivir and how they're able to navigate these team fights and stay alive through a very potent dive topside of Femboys. Oberyn Martell, Grand Starfall into the top lane, but the Subjugate is popped down. And now Lethal Tempo stacking up as Martell flashes out, does drop the Ignite, but Sylas in the area. Chain Lash connects onto the minion, helps close the gap. Senju trying to show face as the root is going to connect, but Senju probably not enough damage at this stage of the game, especially with Ashes jumping up. So with Yuumi showing in the top side, Stark and Snow are going to get something back on the bottom side, but that's not going to be first tower, as that went over to Inferno, who is once again dominating this 1 versus 1 matchup. And this time around, Martell had the counter pick. Granted, you don't really know it's the Trundle, but always something to keep an eye on. Chain Lash dodged away from. Trade of Swain ultis back and forth, but Dario Naharis is not going to be able to live through the Ashes buffed up. Don't ban Yasuo. Monk Mentality there for a little bit of cheerleading. As this Sylas is starting to get some gold in their back pocket. 3 kills now for the junglers of Femboys. And this is what you're scared of for Hidden Leaf, is letting this top side of Femboys just pick up random kills here or there, because you take a look at this Sivir, and how is this Sivir going to pilot through Monk Mentality's Akali, through a Swain with, you know, either you get your choices. You have easy point and click CC with Maokai and Nautilus, or just tanky survivability with the Swain ult. So the Swain's going to be very comfortable in team fights. And Inferno, oh my goodness, great pillar onto Jon Snow's hook. Don't ban Yasuo. Clearing some vision in the bottom side, as we do see Dragon spawning in 30 seconds here. Dario Naharis is going to have to back up here, as Monk Mentality just calling for the dive anyway. Jumps in, Shuriken flick, perfect execution is just that. As that was a solo kill under tower for Monk Mentality's Akali, and that just kind of speaks to this slippery slope game state that Hidden Leaf find themselves in, as it may not be autumn, but the leaves are falling. Drake spawning right now, and Sylas in a comfortable position to take that, with the Swain down and Trundle holding the top side very well. Nautilus ult stolen. That point-and-click CC I was talking about. We'll see how Stark is able to kind of pilot through it. As Maokai ult comes down, is dodged away from the Sylas. Sylas ulti in through, and Arya Stark is flashed on by Monk Mentality, trying to kite it out, but does not have enough damage. Spacing what she can, but this Stark is just forced out on sub 100 HP. As the damage at this stage in the game, and a flash in from Dompan Yasuo, it is going to be a 1-for-1. But Dragon going over, and now a 3k gold lead for the side of Femboys. Hairwiz's 4th ranked power team, showing exactly why they're that, is Inferno's going to be able to run over this side lane, and exactly as CLT says, this Swain is not going to be able to hold the side lane. Forced to ulti, forced to flash, but it is still not enough as Inferno flash chomps of his own. Martel trying to Grand Starfall into Mac, who flaps his wings away. And maybe a bit of desperation coming through for Hidden Leaf as season on the line. They find themselves staring down almost a 5k gold deficit. As Inferno, backed up by Ashes, is going to run down Jon Snow, who missed the dredge line onto the wall. Senju forced to ulti, and now in a 2 versus 3, this Trundle is whacking away. Not going to be enough, and now Ashes left to die. Sivir getting some gold back. And what was a bit of an overstep from Inferno, and a great punish from Senju and Snow. You see the power of what the front line can do there. Granted, that was just the Trundle, and Trundle almost got one back. But buying space for Sivir to hit, who can then shred the Trundle. Trundle, no real tanky items, you know, just has the Ravenous and the Bork, so without Subjugate up, is a little bit more squishy. And now eyes turning towards Otacon here, as Hidden Leaf are trying to get something back. Monk Mentality in the area, though. Keep your eyes on this Akali. Sylas cleaning up the flanks as well, as Hidden Leaf are getting pincered from all sides here. Otacon falling low, trying to kite it back. Dompan Yasuo in the area, maybe poking his head around for a steal as Maokai ult comes down. Monk Mentality jumping in, gets one, still has the R2, which goes on to Arya Stark, picks up 2, Protobelts forward. Mac on the top side of our map, looking for Senju, who forced to flash out. And now, Oberyn Martell trying to trade one back, does fall down. Is the Sylas, but Inferno on the backside is going to be able to run the rest of this Hidden Leaf squad down if he can find them. As smart backs in the bushes means at the end of it all, a 2-for-1 in the favor of Femboys, and a middle-tier mid-tower destroyed for Mac on the Smolder. So gold once again in the favor of Femboys. This Smolder jumping up to 170 stacks. And with those kills, with Maokai, tempo a bit delayed, having to clear mid-wave. Otacon going to be started up. Inferno chasing down Jon Snow. But backup is coming for Hidden Leaf. Hook goes just wide. Couldn't quite get it around that pillar. That was really never going to hit. Otacon backed away from. But this time, started up by Hidden Leaf, as this is quite the Otacon dance as TP comes in. Monk Mentality a bit far from the area. The star mid laner of Femboys not going to be there for the start of the fight, but it's not going to matter as Mac gets to free hit alongside the Sylas and Trundle, but Oberyn Martell comes in, and that Maokai AP damage is doing work. A double kill for the side of Maokai. Eyes turn towards the Otacon as Monk Mentality is coming in, closing the gap. Smite comes through, and now Senju and Naharis are on the run, and Inferno is on the chase. Monk Mentality jumping in too. Shuriken flip into perfect execution into the backside, and now Senju is in trouble. No flash on that Maokai means another double kill for the side of Akali, and an ace for the side of Femboys, as things kind of looked good for Hidden Leaf there, getting some early kills as it was just the Trundle, Smolder, and Sylas there at the start of the fight. Senju, Naharis, and Martell holding the line well there, getting some good damage onto that beefy front line. Jon Snow finds himself in a bit of trouble from this 4 levels up Trundle, who is whacking away. Lethal tempo stacked up. Ashes sitting there too. Pops the Yuumi ulti, and Arya Stark can do nothing but watch as her support falls. Does try to kite out the Trundle, does get one, and is going to be able to pick up a second one onto this Yuumi. Exactly where you want the gold. 7 and 4 on this Sivir. If you can buy time and get this Sivir to 4 items, and then keep her alive through the Akali, these team fights will go in the favor of Hidden Leaf. But until that point, if Monk Mentality keeps running things on this Akali, it's looking tough to play, as Naharis gonna poke head and find Monk Mentality. Who else who has had this mid laner's numbers all game and still in the back line here? Arya Stark falling down for a double kill for Monk Mentality, who flash shuriken flips forward, is getting stunned up by the Pantheon, and is going to drop down. A shutdown over to the Pantheon. Some big gold over. A bit overzealous on the Akali. Don't blame him at all, though, after the display of mechanics throughout the game here. And more importantly, Dragon going over to the side of Femboys. The last 2 going over to them. Hidden Leaf stacking it up early, but haven't been able to pick any up since then, as Jon Snow once again caught out by the Trundle. This time forced to flash out. Really got to be careful, as this Trundle can just run him down again. Ashe is sitting on top of him, and his club just keeps dropping. Subjugate goes down, and Senju falling dangerously low too. Forced to flash out, and the support of Femboys drops down. And Inferno pushing his way forward into the red buff jungle, red side jungle of Hidden Leaf. Trying to keep things rolling. Keep the game accelerated so you don't let this Sivir scale. Taking a quick look at the Smolder stack check. It is at 200, so a bit behind pace, but this is not a Smolder carry game. This is an Akali, Trundle, Sylas carry game, as they turn their eyes towards the Baron after that support pickoff and jungle force out. Monk Mentality once again camping the bush, going forward onto Naharis, who is forced to flash out. Is getting caught by the Smolder ult and tagged by the R2. Perfect execution from Monk Mentality's 11th kill on this Akali. B1 to the Akali, and it doesn't look like Hidden Leaf has the answer for it. So, gold lead about 6k now. We'll see if that is able to be stabilized at all with the Sivir. I think the one thing you look at this stage of the game that is promising for Hidden Leaf is Femboys don't have a great siege comp, and when you have the Sivir, you have great wave clear to kind of stall things. As trade of ultis in the top side, kind of see a little bit of this wave clear come through with the Sivir ricochets. Naharis going to be there for some support. Trundle TPing back into the top lane after trading a bit aggressively onto Martell and Jon Snow. Monk Mentality jumping onto Jon Snow himself. Tower falling low from Inferno, and now Monk Mentality backing up his top laner here. Open Martell is just left to the fishes here. Mac doing a little bit of damage too. Jon Snow trying to frontline here. Does catch out the Trundle, and now Arya Stark giving chase forward, but don't ban Yasuo on the backside is going to be enough to pick him up. Monk Mentality picking up kill number 13. Mac finally getting in on the scoreboard as well. And with that set of kills and that final ace, got to imagine that will be it. As in dominating fashion, Femboys in this wildcard round 1 take out Hidden Leaf 2-0. Led by Monk Mentality's assassin gameplay. This 1-3-1 team is going to be a team to watch throughout the rest of this playoffs here. 29-20, 27.5 minutes in. Don't let the kills fool you. I don't know if the game is ever that close as Monk Mentality and the Femboy squad take the series 2-0. Taking a look at the damage charts. Great spread on the side of Femboys, really. Wasn't all Monk Mentality this game. We see the Trundle and the Silas do some work. I'm sure the Smolder would have gotten the chance to do a bit more later on. And on the side of Hidden Leaf, unfortunately, their season does come to a close. Hard-fought series there. And seeing some fun drafts out of them, too. With the Pantheon in the top lane. Kind of these brawly, drain-takey type comps. Did see the double Enchanter. While, you know, we may not be a fan of that, it's always nice to see an interesting look like that. And just not quite enough against the might of the Femboys, who are still rocking this 1-3-1 style, drafting these bruiser carries and an assassin for monk mentality to help let them facilitate the game. And if they get ahead, it is very tough for any opponent of Femboys to kind of challenge that. So it will be interesting to see how things shake out there. As kind of looking at the draft, it is going to be Femboys versus Happy Jellyfish in this next round here. It does get loaded up. So we'll see how things shake out there. As in terms of kind of the power rankings, you're looking at number 3 and number 4 teams battling it out in round 2, quarterfinals. So that will be a game to watch. And thank you everyone for tuning in. In terms of the rest of round 1 playoffs action, we have Vancouver and UAFS tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. I believe we'll have the beloved CLT on that. And Sunday we'll have Small Brain No Mechanics versus Coin Flip to round out the rest of round 1. So a game every weekend night for y'all here. Hopefully some good ones to go with that. And definitely hoping to see y'all in chat as well during what are bound to be some good series there, at least on paper. So GG's to Femboys, GG's to Hidden Leaf. And I hope you all have a good rest of your night. Later.